So we put together this opportunity because we're also filmmakers and know how hard it can be to make a movie and how complicated it can be to like put all of those puzzle pieces together. And out of the spirit of the Lower East Side Film Festival and really like that indie wild child streak that we all love and admire in so many of our favorite movies, we want to create a space to continue to grow and support that. Right now, I've been making movies for the last 10 years, and I feel like there's so much pressure to rise up through all of the content that's out there and, attach A-list talent to your film or get repped by a huge agency. And that's all well and good. But I also just want to make sure that there continues to be a space to take creative risks and to make projects on your own terms and make stuff that feels like maybe no one's thought of it yet and no one quite knows how to like put that out into the world, but that doesn't mean that it's not valuable. So this project comes out of that, and we're aiming to connect filmmakers with up to $400,000 in financing as well as production services. So what this opportunity is an opportunity to pitch for that financing for your film and also work with BFD in some capacity to produce your project and receive development support from us. So there are a couple of rounds for this process, which are described pretty in depth on our website, and I'll drop that link in the chat as well. But we just kind of wanted to like walk you through that briefly, and then we'll move on to what happens if you are to be selected for this.
Yeah, I just dropped that link in the chat. So yeah, if you're not familiar, take a peek at that. But and that kind of gets into a little bit more specifics, but just in a general sense, just to clarify the basics, the submissions are open now, and we'll be accepting submissions until December 31st. So you've got a little bit of time. And what we're looking for in terms of a first round submission, we're accepting narrative and documentary feature projects. It's just for feature films. So thank you for your interest if you've got a short film, but feel free to submit it to the Lower East Side Film Festival. But this project is just for feature films. And like I said, narrative or documentary projects. So, we're really just trying to cast a wide net and see who's out there and what kind of stories we can bring to light. And in terms of the types of things we're looking for a scripted project, that doesn't mean that you have to have a script today that's finished. We want to just kind of hear log lines and get an idea of your previous work, get an idea of your vision for this film, if there's any attributes that make you as a filmmaker special, or if you have access to something really special that's going to maybe lend itself to telling that story better or lend itself to having a lower budget. If the story is all about a Dairy Queen and you have access to a Dairy Queen and you live in a town that is going to champion that, then that's great. And I only said that because I worked at a Dairy Queen, so it kind of just but no Dairy Queen specific projects have to be submitted. But anyway, so we just want to get to know you, and we just want to get to know what the story is and what the vision could be. It doesn't have to be a finished script. For a documentary project, kind of the same thing. A documentary obviously is a different beast, but we want to know what you envision the story to be. And obviously, since it hasn't been shot yet, you won't entirely know. But I think we just want to know what access you have, what story you're hoping to tell. If you have shot anything for a doc, that's okay. But I think overall that the general idea for the project too is that we are getting in with you in an earlier phase. So it's not necessarily the Stay Indie project isn't necessarily for finishing funds. It's not necessarily for, I want to do a festival run, or I need a trailer cut, anything like that. It's a little bit more earlier in the game so that we can really help develop the project together. And also just clarify what we mean by that too is we're not looking to grab your idea and run with it. We're looking to really be a true collaborator and just lift you up and help in any way that we can. And that comes in terms of financing, but also utilizing our production company, BFD Productions, as a partner in just helping where we can. And that, like I said, that doesn't mean us driving all of the production or anything like that. It's just kind of figuring out what your project needs and what resources we can pull in to help bring it to light. Was that a lot of words? Probably. Sarah, tell them a little bit about the round 2.
Yeah, so the submissions for round 1 close at the end of the year. You have until December 31st to get those submissions in. And again, like, we're not asking for full scripts or like fully formed documentary production schedules. So I'd say, like, if you feel like you think you have an idea for something, or like your script is, you're excited about it, but maybe it's like not totally there, just submit. Like, we want to hear your ideas. The more the merrier. Just go for it. So once that round 1 closes at the end of the year, we will evaluate all of those submissions and pull from that the top 10% of applicants, and we're sort of choosing that top 10% based on a rubric that we've created internally. For narratives, it's pretty aligned with the Nichols Fellowship rubric. So if you're familiar with that, but it's you're being sorry, I got ahead of myself. Once you submit a script, we'll look at that rubric. But for now, we're just like looking at what your story and your synopsis is. And for documentary projects, we're interested in what your story and access are really important. So the round 2 folks will be notified at the end of January. So we'll let you know if you're advanced to round 2. And at that point, that's when you'll send us your full script. Or if you're a documentary filmmaker, we'll ask you to do an interview with us. So, that can be on Zoom, or if you happen to be in Brooklyn, you can come on by the BFD offices. We'd be happy to meet with you. And that's just an opportunity for us to ask you some more questions about what your project is, and for you to get to know us a little bit better too. So the finalists, so basically the top 3 projects out of that round 2 pool, will be chosen at the end of February and be announced. And that's when you'll move into being in fellowship with us, essentially. And what that is a year of development support from BFD. So that's sort of whatever you need as a filmmaker. That's going to be really different project to project. Maybe you're a screenwriter and you feel like your script is totally ready to shoot, but you don't really know how to pull together the team that you need in order to make that movie. You still need the financing. Maybe you need to find the right location, all of that stuff. We can help with that. Or maybe you know exactly who you want to work with and exactly where you want to shoot this thing. That's great. We can be there to support you in other ways that could be helpful. So again, that's the conversation that we'll have together and figure out what's the most helpful and meaningful to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then basically after that phase, as a part of that, what Sarah's talking about in terms of development support, we will work with our team will work with your team to really craft the pitch for financing, and talking to our financiers, who are very trusted partners of us that we've come to know over the years through the film festival, and get your project into a place that's going to, take it to them and put it in the best light in order to actually bring this project into fruition. And that will kind of be the last phase of this project in terms of that process of narrowing down who's at the end of the line, I guess. And then after that, after the project is awarded with financing and we're getting all the development ducks in a row and we know where we're going to shoot it, or we've shot it, or whatever, whatever it is in terms of if it's a narrative or a doc, then we're not done. Like, we want to finish this film with you. We want to get it into the festival circuit. We want to talk about distribution. Like, it's not a one and done kind of relationship. This is something where, and this has happened with the film festival in the past, where we've really come attached to a filmmaker that we've noticed in the festival, and we kind of take them from the film festival world, Lower East Side Film Festival, over to BFD Productions, the production company side of things, and just start to develop their film in a larger way. And it's come in the form of, it wasn't shot yet. It's come in the form of, oh, it was partially shot, or here's a script, things like that. And we've helped actually make that project come to light. And this is just a more formal way of doing it, because we've just seen so many amazing filmmakers come through the festival each year, and we're just trying to, figure out what's next for them and help them get to the next level. So this is sort of just like a formalized way of doing that. So yeah, that's, and part of the end fun cherry on the top would be that this project, the final film is screened as a part of the Lower East Side Film Festival and a special screening, so that no matter what, we can all come together and celebrate your film and watch it together, because that's also what it's all about. So yeah, we have a couple specific FAQs that we can get to, but if you guys wanted to if you have specific questions that you want to start dropping in the chat, we can start to kind of look at those. But Sarah, did you want to talk about a couple FAQs that we have in terms of one question that might come up is international projects? What does that mean?
Yeah, so we've had some questions about if international projects qualify, and the answer is possibly. If you don't live here, we're totally open to your project, but because we're a US-based production company, we want to be involved in your project in some way. And so some element of your project would need to happen in the United States. Ideally, you're shooting it here because that's what we know most about. I don't personally have experience making movies in other parts of the world. But if you're planning to shoot it somewhere else, but you could do post-production here in the United States with us, that's an option. So as long as some elements of it could be here in the US, then yes, go ahead and apply.
What about rights? Can we talk about the rights to your film or your creative ideas?
Yeah, so rights are so important, and that's why we want you to keep them. We're not trying to take away any of your creative rights to anything. So if you make a pitch for financing that's successful, you will enter into a really standard sort of like private equity film financing agreement with those investors, which means that they will receive a portion of your film's profits when it makes lots and lots of money, but that doesn't give them any ownership over your creative rights. Those rights stay with you until you decide or don't decide to sell them to somebody else, like a distributor. If you accept financing from these investors and we start to talk about the ways in which we can collaborate together as a production company, that will be a separate agreement, along the more standard production services lines. But again, we're not claiming ownership over any of your creative rights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple questions that I was going to get to anyway, and this is perfect for some of the questions I'm seeing in the chat, is just this idea of that your project might already have some legs, right? It might have already shot some things, especially if it's a doc that seems like a very probable situation. And in some ways, I think that's a benefit too, because if you've already started to maybe identify some characters and things like that, that's not out of the realm of being able to submit it. I think this is a new project for us. So we're trying to, figure out the best way to get these films made. And we certainly wouldn't want to turn anyone away just on a technicality like that. The goal is just to be a part of the development process. So like I said, it's not a finishing funds kind of project where you're giving us a rough cut and it's already almost all the way to the end and you just need a sound mix or something like that. It's more about, can we help really play a role in helping you just get it to the finish line in a creative way and not just in a sort of like technicality way. So I think that, I know that sounds a little vague, but I would just say from some of the ones that I'm reading that you can still submit. I think it's if you already have a little bit shot, that means you just have a really solid concept. And I think that that's great. And as long as you're still open to the idea of us being involved and helping kind of guide it, then that's something that we're aligned on. So I think that's awesome. And it is definitely open to non-LESFF alum, 100%. Anyone is allowed to submit. There was a question about, can you submit more than one project? Absolutely. There's no issue there. What constitutes a feature film? So yeah, I think, for us as a festival, we've always kind of viewed anything longer than 40 minutes, 45 minutes longer as a feature. With that said, I think if we're talking about distribution and things like that, we're thinking a little bit more used to, a 90-minute kind of range. Just thinking about who would potentially buy the film, where it could end up, where people are going to view it. That's a little bit more of the feature length we're talking about, but that certainly doesn't mean that there's not a place for a shorter feature. There's plenty of different opportunities for streamers and festivals and things like that that'll take a little bit of a shorter feature. I think it's just making what fits for the film. Don't force it to be any longer than it needs to be, just to fit a certain guideline. But that's kind of the range we're looking for in terms of a feature. Let me see who else.
Questions about, is this annual or a one-off? We really hope that this will be an annual project. This is our first time. We hope that it's super successful, and we hope that we'll be able to do it again every year. But we have to see how it goes. Doing it annually is certainly the plan at this point.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, this is a good question too. What if your budget is more than 400K? Sarah, what do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so the reason that we chose this 400K number is because we feel like it's the sweet spot where films can still recoup without having to get super tangled within the Hollywood industry. Not that getting entangled is necessarily bad, but it takes the pressure off of having to attach a certain kind of talent or a certain kind of agency or other production company. So we feel like that's the sweet spot for where we can best support you as a filmmaker, just making the creative decisions that you want to make and not having to worry about cooperating within the sort of like what's working in Hollywood right now, which to be honest is not a lot. If you feel like your budget is maybe a little over 400K, I would say submit anyway and tell us that. We've definitely found ways to make projects less expensive. We have some amazing collaborators that are willing to do us some favors. We can maybe find a way to work together to bring that number down a little bit. But this, forgive me, Mark, you're talking about a movie that is about $1 million and you already have half of that. That's amazing. Congrats, that's incredible. But that 1 million mark is too high for us. We're really trying to keep it sort of like in this 400 and below range.
Mm-hmm. Another question was just about, are we leaning towards any specific kind of genre or things that we're looking for? I think the answer is no, there's no specific genre or anything like that. We're just looking for things that we've never seen before. And as festival creators and as filmmakers, you've seen a lot of things. So I think we're just looking for something that feels like I've never heard of that before. I've never seen that before. And I can't wait to go on this journey and see this film. Or if it's something that I have heard of before, that's okay too. But this is a new way of telling that story, and this is a new kind of journey. It's just something that feels fresh, and I think that we've seen that again and again throughout the festival. And those are the films that we gravitate towards programming. Is just giving the audience a totally new experience that they haven't seen before. Which again, I know sounds very vague, but you know what I mean.
Leanne, great question. The total, yes, it can be a higher total if there's soft money like tax credits involved. If there's money that does not need to be recouped, then we'll consider sort of higher budget. So that could be tax incentives, that could be crowdfunding campaigns, that could be grants. So if you have a project that maybe you've already gotten a couple of grants, you think that you need 400K to sort of like finish that out, but the 400K is only what needs to be recouped, then yes, please submit.
Question from Robert about is this only to produce the film? Would you be able to direct the film if you submit it? Yeah, absolutely. There's no, if you're coming on to this film in whatever capacity and you want to submit it to us, if you're the screenwriter, if you are the director, if you're the producer, whatever it is, it's fair game. And like I said, each project is different. So we would just work with you on helping you fill out those other roles if you don't have them, or if you do have them and you want to work with these people, it's open to each individual project, kind of case by case. Let's see who else. We've got a couple more. Yep, you may submit more than one project, for sure. And let's see who these. Sarah,
a lower budget, like if your film only needs $50,000 to be made, that's great. It doesn't have to be 400. And if you already have like some financing from other places, so the pitch that you're making is, not for a full 400, but maybe, you just need 100K more to finish out your total budget. That's great too.
Mm-hmm. Can rough drafts of scripts be submitted, or should they be polished final version? Rough drafts can absolutely be submitted. It doesn't have, especially what we're talking about in round one, you don't even have to have the script there yet. It's just more about log lines and, summary and getting to know you and your previous work and trusting your vision for this.
And if, if script story development is something that you want from us, we can provide that too. So there is a possibility that we will choose a script that isn't totally finished yet, but we love the idea, we love the filmmaker. We'll work with you to sort of like round out that script, get it polished, and ready to pitch, if that's something that you want.
Yeah, I think I've seen a couple questions about just that development period, that time period. From being in the top 3 to pitching to financiers is a flexible time range. I think, Sarah, we were kind of we were saying a year of development, but that's a really flexible time range. It's just dependent upon the project. If it feels like that we only need a month or 2 to help you get to that place where we feel confident we want to pitch it, then that's it. But if it's something where you're going to benefit from having the script be worked on or rewritten, or you're going to, if it's a documentary project that's dependent upon, something that's an event that's happening within that year or something like that, it's flexible. It's just kind of a wide net. And like I said, dependent upon the project. So, it's just kind of whatever fits the best. There's no rush on our end. We're just trying to do it within a reasonable time frame, so that we can do it again the following year and have another fellowship. So that's kind of where that timeline comes from.
Nikita, so if you make the pitch for financing and the investors decide that it's not the right fit for them, so they're not going to make an offer, you still have that, development time frame with us. So we'll do whatever is helpful for you in terms of trying to move the project forward in other ways, whether that's helping you pitch to other financiers. We don't have that same connection with them, but there's certainly more folks with money out there. Or if it's doing a crowdfunding campaign or approaching other production companies, we're still there to support you to help make your project. If a financing offer has been made and you feel like it's not the right fit for you, you can totally turn it down, walk away. Again, we're there to support you in other ways if that's helpful to you, but there's no obligation to accept the offer for financing.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of financing, a question from Amy. Sarah, do you want to just talk a little bit about our financing partners?
Yeah, as Roxy mentioned, they're trusted folks that we've met through the festival. They've supported many independent projects over the years. Those projects have landed on Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and Showtime. So they know how this works. They understand the filmmaking process. And they really do have a love of independent film. So they're very aligned with this project and its goals.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've had a lot of films, or a lot of people that we've met over the years, and the folks that really get the ethos of Lower East Side Film Festival and its mission to just really try to support underdog indie filmmaking is who these folks are. So, it's a way to just, get more of these films made and get them out there and get more, hits at bat in terms of different filmmakers that we're aligning with. And we're really excited about that. Let's see, I have a couple more questions. If you have a rough script or pieces of it, would it be helpful to submit those in the first round? Yeah, I mean, like I said, in the first round, we're trying to just narrow down the first pool of folks to the next round. So any materials you want to send are super helpful. It's just not required. But if you're, if you already have pieces of a script or something like that, that's definitely something that can be included. Let's see. Thank you. By the way, thank you guys so much for asking all these awesome questions. We're really, really excited that so many people joined this info session. We kind of just threw this project out into the ether and hope that we get folks interested in it, and it sounds like we do. So we're really, really excited about that.
Tadele, there is a submission fee. It's $50 to submit.
Let's see. Randy's question. This is a new grant, so we don't have a list of films that I can point to. So this is a new project on our end. But I think if you know the Lower East Side Film Festival and you've ever attended, or if you just peek at some of the films that we've done in the years past, that might speak to the ethos. Like Sarah said, keeping it in that lower 400K or less kind of range is the type of stories that we're, looking for, that aren't going to rely on necessarily having a huge name to push it along or anything like that. We're hoping to just push it along because we really believe in the story and you as a filmmaker. Let's see, I think one more thing I just wanted to get to. Would a line item budget be helpful for round one? Yeah, that's not a requirement, but if you can tell us anything about what you would need the money for and where that helps us to also figure out where we can be helpful as a development partner. If you already have certain advantages or access to certain locations or things like that, that's going to come into play for sure.
You don't have to be in New York. You can be anywhere in the United States or in the world, as long as you plan to make some part of your movie in the United States.
Carlos's question, certainly we're going to take into account some filmmaker experience for sure, just so we can kind of it's sometimes easier to get to know you if we can watch some of your work, but there's by no means a strict, kind of resume that we're looking for. It's about getting to know you, and if it feels like a story that we really want to champion telling, then there's no rubric of requirement for your experience. Oh yeah, the question about visual effects heavy, that could be tricky. Like I said, if you have somebody that can magically do that for super cheap, then we'll certainly take that into account. But I think, we were looking at these submissions coming in. We just want to make sure that they are realistic for that kind of a budget too, so if we're seeing something with a lot of heavy visual effects and things like that, that might not be the best fit for this project. But if you're, crazier things have happened. So, if you feel like it could be, then I don't want to hold you back from submitting.
Yeah. And on that note, there's a question in the round 1 application that asks about like what elements you maybe have in place or anything that we should know about how you envision this film coming together. So, maybe your concept does include a lot of visual effects, but you are a VFX artist and are sort of like willing to put in a bunch of time on that yourself. So it's not going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just make sure that you tell us that, so that we don't look at your project and say like, well, we think that this can't be made for $400,000 or something. Same thing goes for locations like that Dairy Queen. If you've got that Dairy Queen, tell us about it.
That's a good callback. Yes. Lisa's question, absolutely, a hybrid doc is something that can be a part of this for sure. I love a good hybrid doc. That's like such an amazing genre of film. So absolutely, that can be something. And like I said too, every project is different. So we will take into account if it's a hybrid, that's obviously going to be a slightly different beast than if it was narrative solely or doc solely and things like that. My favorite movies, that's a tricky one. I don't know if I want to narrow it down to only a few, but like I said, I think if you haven't been to Lower East Side Film Festival, then there's, that's a bummer. But I think if you understand the ethos of our festival a little bit too, we're just about, films, like I said, that you haven't seen, and something that just really is told in a super duper unique way. It doesn't have to be genre specific. It doesn't have to be, a comedy, or it doesn't have to be an action, drama, whatever it is. I mean, there's so much of a variety of things out there today anyway. We have so many things to stream that I think it's hard to just be fresh and new. And I think that that's what we're about at the film festival. And that's kind of what this project is geared towards too. I would hate to tell you, something that turns you off from submitting. So I would just say that, if it feels like it's in the ethos of Lower East Side Film Festival or just indie filmmaking, don't hesitate to submit. We're casting a pretty wide net. So we're excited to see what we get.
Robert, the second rounders, you'll need to have that script ready by, I believe, January 31st. Let me double check that. I'm going to also drop the link in again because the timeline is on the website.
Awesome. I was just gonna say, this question about a little bit more of a finishing funds situation. If you wanna, I was gonna say too at the end of the session, if there's things that me and Sarah haven't answered specifically that you really want some clarity on, you can feel free to email us and we can drop our emails in. But if it's something where you feel like this is maybe the right fit, but not the right fit, like I said, it's a new project for us. And we're just trying to, like I said, cast a wide net and see what's out there. So if it still feels like it could potentially be a fit, or you just want to have a conversation about it, and that's a little easier, we're totally open to that. So hold on, let me just drop in. This is me.
Yeah, I'll put mine in as well.
Yeah, and you know, it's I would just say too, it's not just me and Sarah. There's a team of folks that are going to be looking at these projects, trusted folks that have worked with us through as a part of the film festival, as a part of the production company, people in the industry, and we're still kind of putting together all of that team. So, you know, it's not just about what my favorite movie is too. It's also about our group and just feeling out all of these different projects and determining what we feel like is the best fit for this project. Yeah.
And on that, one more thing on that favorite movie note, I can never answer that question because I feel like my favorite movie changes every week. I'm just so constantly wowed and in wonder of stories. And every week I feel like I find something new that's extraordinary. And something really cool that I've learned since having joined BFD as development director, that I wish I knew that when I was a filmmaker, is that if your story is good, it's going to reach the other person, even if it's not totally for them. Like I keep reading scripts that I think I'm not going to like because it's not like my thing. But if the filmmaker is telling me a good story, it really doesn't matter. Like it's reaching into my heart and grabbing it, or it's making my mind work in a different way. So that's one of my favorite parts of my job, is just like opening up my mind to new stories that I didn't know that I was going to fall in love with.
I love that. Thanks, Sarah. Well, yeah, if you, like I said, if you guys have any more very specific questions and you'd rather shoot us an email, that's fine too. If anyone is bold enough and wants to ask anything here, you can like raise your hand. But I understand we're all people that are used to being behind the camera, so we might not want to be in front of the camera asking questions. But yeah, I just want to say too that we're so honored that you guys took the time to come and chat with us. I think that it kind of covers all the things that we were hoping to talk about. Sarah, is there anything I'm forgetting? And do you want to just again just reiterate the timeline of the deadlines?
Yep. So please send us your submissions before December 31st. That is the deadline for round one. So, and you know, the earlier you submit, the better, because we're reviewing all of those things. And if they all come in on December 31st, we're going to be really tired. So submit them early if they're ready. Then on January 31st, so just 1 month later, we're going to announce those selected participants for round two. You'll be notified of that, and we'll ask you for your scripts, or we'll ask you to arrange a time to sit down and talk with us if you have a documentary film. I think it was Robert who asked that question. You should have your scripts, if you're a narrative filmmaker, ready by January 31st, because again, it's sort of a quick timeline here. So we'll want that from you pretty quickly once you're selected for round two. Then at the end of February, we will announce the final participants in the State Indie Project. That will be very exciting. And then, you know, from there, it says on the website March to June, but again, we're sort of flexible timeline wise, depending on the needs of your project, depending on where you are in the process. So don't take that too literally, but we're hoping like in those first several months together, we'll start working with you to develop your pitch. You know, hopefully you'll meet our financiers. We'll work on your story. We'll figure out how to get your project made.
Oh yeah, good question about how many films are we taking on. I mean, you know, like I said, it's a new project for us. The goal is to kind of really hone in probably on one, just because if we're talking about up to 400K, we're trying to put as much into that into one film. But if it feels like, you know, your film doesn't need that, or it needs less or something like that, there's always an opportunity that money could be going to a couple separate projects. But yeah, we're not quite at the phase where we can award it to, you know, 10 or 15 kind of films. Hopefully that'll be on the next couple of years of this fellowship. Let's see.
Leanne, it's helpful if the submission form is set up so that you're sort of entering questions one by one. There's also, an opportunity to submit links to any sort of additional materials. So if you wanted to set up a document that sort of has everything and include a link to that in the application, that's great. But it is also helpful if you just sort of like go through those questions and type in those answers, because of the way that we're organizing them on the back end.
Yeah, and it also gives you an opportunity to, like Sarah said, if you have a deck, if you have a pitch deck or something like that, you can add those links there if you've already kind of got everything organized in a specific way. But we do still want you to go through and do the rest of the submission. It's not terribly long though. You're not going to be doing it for hours. And Nikita's question about having the project done in a certain time frame, there's not a finite number to that. I think we want to see this project get made relatively soon, but I think with filmmaking, it's always, it's every film is a different beast, and especially if it's a doc that maybe is going to take a long time to track something that's happening or follow certain characters, that could be the case. Or just, getting any feature made takes a lot of time. So there's not a strict timeline to it. But if your project's going to take 10 years, then that might not be what we're looking for. But I don't think anyone wants to make a film for 10 years. So I think it doesn't need to be done by a specific time frame. I mean, I think it would be great if it could be done in the next few years for sure.
And yes, there will be a recording of this afterwards.
Cool.
All for being here with us. I wish that we could just like hang out for the rest of Friday, but you probably have more interesting things to go to.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much again. And like I said, if there's something specific you want to follow up with, don't hesitate. And this recording will be available as well. Also, we, regular submissions for Lower East Side Film Festival are open right now for just our annual festival run. And there's a couple upcoming deadlines for those too. So if you have a short or another feature or whatever, feel free to submit. And our festival will be held in May this year, which is exciting. It's a new time frame for us. We're typically a little bit later in the summer, and we're moving up a little bit. So yeah, either way, hope we see you at the festival. And thanks for spending time chatting with us. And enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye, y'all. Thanks.